Let's take a deep breath. Let's be present in this moment right now. Feel the weight of your head on your pillow. Feel the weight of the blanket on your body. Forget about everything else while we read Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Keep going where we left off yesterday. Chapter 6, Pig and Pepper. The door led into a large kitchen full of smoke. A duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in the middle of the room nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring an iron pot full of soup and shaking a pepper pot into it. The air was thick with pepper. The duchess was sneezing, and the baby was howling and sneezing in turn. A large cat was lying on the hearth rug, grinning from ear to ear. "Why does your cat grin like that?" asked Alice. "It's a Cheshire cat," said the duchess. "Pig!" Alice, startled, thought the duchess was addressing her, but it was the baby she meant. Suddenly, the cook took the pot off the fire and began throwing soup over everything within reach. When it was all gone, she threw the poker and the tongs, saucepan, dishes, and plates at the duchess and the baby. "Oh, mind what you're doing!" cried Alice, as a large saucepan lid whizzed past the baby's nose. The duchess took no notice and began to sing a lullaby to the baby. She threw it up and down, giving it a violent shake at the end of each line. "Speak roughly to your little boy, and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, because he knows it teases." The chorus, with which the cook and the baby joined in, was, "Wow, wow, wow." "Here," said the duchess, flinging the baby at Alice, "you may nurse it for a bit if you like. I must get ready to play croquet with the queen." Alice could hardly hold the baby, it wriggled so. She took it outside and looked at its face. It had a turned-up nose and very small eyes. Suddenly, it grunted. Alice looked at it in alarm. It had turned into a pig. She put it down quickly, and it trotted happily away into the wood. "If it had grown up, it would have been an ugly child," thought Alice, "but it makes quite a handsome pig." Next moment, Alice was surprised to see a Cheshire cat sitting on the branch of a tree and grinning down at her. "Does anyone else live near here?" Alice asked. "In that direction," said the cat, waving its right paw, "lives a hatter. And in that direction," waving its other paw, "lives a March hare. Visit either. They're both mad. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad." "How do you know I'm mad?" said Alice. "You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here. Are you going to play croquet with the queen today?" "I haven't been invited yet," said Alice. "I'll be there," said the cat, and vanished. Alice was still looking at the place where it had been, when suddenly it appeared again. "What became of the baby?" it said. "I forgot to ask." "It turned into a pig," said Alice. "I wish you wouldn't disappear so quickly. It makes me giddy." "All right," said the cat. And this time it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of its tail and ending with its grin, which remained for some time after the rest of it had gone. "Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin," said Alice, "but I've never seen a grin without a cat before." Chapter 7. The Mad Hatter's Tea Party. Alice easily recognized the March Hare's house. The chimneys were shaped like ears, and the roof was covered with fur. At a table in front of the house, the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea. A dormouse was sitting between them. It was asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head. The table was a large one, but all three were crowded together at one corner of it. "No room! No room!" they cried when they saw Alice coming. "There's plenty of room," said Alice indignantly, sitting down in a large armchair. "Have some wine," said the March Hare. "I don't see any wine," said Alice, looking around. "There isn't any," said the March Hare. "It wasn't very polite of you to offer it, then," said Alice angrily. "It wasn't very polite of you to sit down without being asked," said the March Hare. Then the Hatter joined in. "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" he asked Alice. "I believe I can guess that," began Alice. "Do you mean you think you can find out the answer?" asked the Mad Hatter. "Exactly so," said Alice. "Then you should say what you mean," said the March Hare. "I do," Alice replied. "At least, I mean what I say, and that's the same thing, you know." "Not the same thing at all," said the Hatter. "You might as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see." "You might as well say," added the March Hare, "that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like." While Alice thought about how to reply to this, the Mad Hatter took out his watch and looked at it. He shook it every now and then and held it to his ear. "2 days wrong," he said. "I told you butter wouldn't suit the works." He looked angrily at the March Hare. "It was the best butter," said the March Hare. "Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well," the Hatter grumbled. "You shouldn't have put it in with a bread knife." The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it in his cup of tea and looked at it again. "Let's change the subject," he said. "I vote the young lady tells us a story." "But I don't know one," said Alice in alarm. "Then the Dormouse shall," they both cried. "Wake up, Dormouse!" They pinched it on both sides at once, and the Hatter poured a little hot tea on its nose. "I wasn't asleep," murmured the Dormouse. "I heard every word you said." "Tell us a story," said the March Hare. "Yes, please do," said Alice. "Once upon a time there were 3 sisters," began the Dormouse in a great hurry. "Their names were Elsie, Lacy, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well." "What did they live on?" asked Alice. "They lived on treacle," said the Dormouse. "They couldn't have," said Alice. "They'd have been ill." "So they were," said the Dormouse. "Very ill." "Have some more tea?" said the Hatter to Alice. "I haven't had any yet," said Alice. "So how can I have any more?" "You mean you can't have less," said the Hatter. "It's easy to have more than nothing." Alice turned back to the Dormouse. "Why did they live at the bottom of a well?" she asked. "It was a treacle well," said the Dormouse. "These sisters were learning to draw, you see." "What did they draw?" asked Alice. "Treacle," replied the Dormouse. "I don't understand," said Alice. "Where did they draw the treacle from?" "You can draw water from a water well," said the Hatter. "So why shouldn't you draw treacle from a treacle well?" "But they were in the well," cried Alice. "Of course they were," said the Dormouse. "Well in." He was getting sleepy again. "They drew everything that begins with an M," the Dormouse went on drowsily. such as mousetraps and the moon and muchness. You say things are much of a muchness. Did you ever see a drawing of a muchness? I don't think, began Alice. Then you shouldn't talk, snapped the Hatter. This was too much for Alice. She got up and walked into the wood. When she looked back, she saw that the others were trying to put the dormouse into the teapot. Chapter 8. The Queen's Croquet Ground. Alice noticed a tree trunk in front of her with a door in it. She opened it and found herself back in the hall with the glass table and the gold key. This time I know what to do, she said. She nibbled at the mushroom until she was small enough to go through the little door into the lovely garden with its flower beds and fountains. Alice was surprised to see 3 gardeners busily painting a white rose tree red, and even more surprised when she saw that they were playing cards. They were flat and oblong, with hands and feet at the corners. Their names were 2, 5, and 7. You see, miss, this here rose tree ought to have been red, 2 was explaining. If the Queen sees it, we shall all have our heads chopped off. Hush, whispered 5. Here she comes. All 3 fell flat on their faces. There was a sound of many footsteps, and Alice looked round, eager to see the Queen. First came 10 soldiers carrying clubs. Then came 10 courtiers decorated with diamonds. Then came the 10 royal children hand in hand with hearts on their tunics. Next came the guests, including the Duchess and the White Rabbit. And then came the Knave of Hearts, carrying a crown on a red velvet cushion. Last of all in the grand procession came the King and Queen of Hearts themselves. Alice curtsied and told the Queen her name. I needn't be afraid of them, she thought. They're only a pack of cards. The Queen looked at the gardeners lying flat on the ground. Turn them over, she said to the knave. The gardeners jumped up and started bowing to everyone. Off with their heads, cried the Queen, and the procession moved off. You shan't be beheaded, said Alice, popping the gardeners into a large flower pot before the soldiers could catch them. Then she caught up with the procession. Get to your places, shouted the Queen in a voice like thunder. It was the strangest game of croquet Alice had ever seen. The balls were curled up hedgehogs, and the mallets were flamingos. The soldiers had to double up and stand on their hands to make the arches. By the time Alice had her flamingo in position to tap the ball, her hedgehog had uncurled and crawled away. The players didn't wait their turns and quarreled over their hedgehogs. The Queen stamped about, shouting, Off with his head! Or Off with her head! Every few minutes. Soon the game was over. All the players, except the King and Queen and Alice, had been sentenced to be beheaded. Alice was relieved to hear the King whisper to them, You are all pardoned. Alice was talking to the Duchess when a trumpet sounded in the distance. The trial's beginning! Come on, said the Duchess, taking Alice by the hand. Chapter 9. Who Stole the Tarts? The courtroom was crowded with small birds and animals, as well as the whole pack of cards. The King and Queen of Hearts were sitting on their thrones. The King, who was judge, wore a wig with his crown on top of it. Near the King stood the White Rabbit, with a trumpet in one hand and a parchment scroll in the other. The Knave of Hearts was in chains, standing between 2 soldiers. On a table was a dish of tarts. Alice hoped that they were the refreshments. There was a jury box with 12 creatures in it, animals, birds, and a small lizard named Bill. They were all writing on slates. "They're putting down their names in case they forget them," whispered the Duchess, digging her sharp little chin into Alice's shoulder. "Stupid things," said Alice in a loud voice. "The silence in the court!" cried the White Rabbit. The jury were busy writing down stupid things. Bill the Lizard's pencil squeaked. Alice could not stand that, so she went round behind him and quietly took it away. The poor little juror searched for it, then tried to write on his slate with his finger, but of course it made no mark. "Herald, read the accusation," said the king sternly. The White Rabbit blew 3 blasts on his trumpet, unrolled his scroll, and read, "The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts, and took them clean away. Consider your verdict," cried the king. "Not yet, your majesty," the White Rabbit hastily interrupted. "The trial comes first." "Call the first witness," said the king. This was the Mad Hatter. He had a teacup in one hand and a piece of bread and butter in the other. "You ought to have finished your tea by now," said the king. "When did you begin?" 14th of March, I think," said the Hatter. 15th, said the March Hare, who was also in the courtroom. 16th, said the Dormouse, who was sitting next to Alice. "Write that down," said the king. The jury eagerly wrote it down and added it up. While the Hatter was giving his evidence, the Dormouse complained to Alice. "I wish you wouldn't squeeze me so." "I can't help it," said Alice. "I'm growing." "Then grow somewhere else," grumbled the Dormouse. "You've no right to grow here." "Call the next witness," said the king. The White Rabbit, in his shrill little voice, read out the name. "Alice!" Chapter 10. Alice's Evidence. "Here!" cried Alice. She jumped up, forgetting how large she had grown, and knocked over the jury box. The jurors went sprawling into the crowd. Alice picked them up and put them back into the box. "We cannot proceed till all the jury are in their proper places," said the king severely. Alice saw that Bill the Lizard was upside down, so she put him back the right way up. "What do you know about this business?" asked the king. "Nothing," said Alice. "That's very important," said the king. "Unimportant, your majesty means," said the White Rabbit anxiously. Some of the jury wrote down important, some wrote unimportant, and some wrote both. Then the king read out, "Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court." Everyone looked at Alice. "That's not a regular rule," protested Alice. "You've just invented it." "It's the oldest rule in the book," said the king. "Then it ought to be number 1, said Alice. "Consider your verdict," said the king. "No!" exclaimed the queen. "Sentence first, verdict after." "Stuff and nonsense!" cried Alice loudly. "The idea of having the sentence first." "Hold your tongue!" bellowed the queen. "I won't," said Alice. "Off with her head!" the queen shouted at the top of her voice. "Who cares for you?" said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." At this, the whole pack rose up in the air and came flying down on her. Alice gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off. All at once, she found herself lying on the grassy bank. Her sister was gently brushing away some of the dead leaves that had fluttered down from the tree onto Alice's face. "Wake up, Alice dear," she said. "What a long sleep you've had." The end. Alice in Wonderland. It's okay to walk your own path. It's okay to do your own thing. So be your best you, because you're amazing. Have the best dreams, and have the best day tomorrow.